Hey there, friends. Good morning. It's November 1st, 2023. We had a fine Halloween here last night. It is teacher strike, begins today here in Portland Public Schools. I've been following that a little bit on Facebook. It wasn't so long ago that I was driving to Portland Public Schools as well as private schools in my capacity as a teacher of coding skills to middle and elementary school students, a little bit of junior high back then. Online, I'm more focused high school and above in terms of what I do, but you'll go back in my archives, you'll find here on this channel, teaching codesters, which is very friendly to younger kids, but I would also encourage adults who are in some kind of boot camp situation or just wanting to master, say, Python, to check out codesters. It's kind of a dialect of Python because it's more like Python 2.7, and it's full of implicit capabilities that ordinary Python doesn't have. But you'll get the syntax, and then it's kind of like a picture book. Then you can turn to a more adult style Python where you don't have the graphical environment that Codesters provides. Anyway, what I want to talk about, given Friday is a big day coming up here this week, in terms of various decision making, people are going to decide certain things relating to whether the war that's going on here or there is going to escalate and so forth. So I did put in Medium, a place where I've deposited quite a bit of my writings, my recent writing that I've been doing a little bit on YouTube about also, which is sort of taking a stand for individual Gazans, Palestinians trapped in this hellhole, um, giving them the liberty to get out, to leave. I mean, if there's any pretense of giving these poor people statehood, that would be one of their first freedoms as this person with the passport, right? What do you get when you get statehood? You get the ability to get a passport and get out if you want. Now, a lot of states don't really make that easy at all. It's like getting a visa to go somewhere if you're from Bangladesh and you're trying to get a visa to the US for what? A sponsor, whatever. I mean, there are long lines at embassies of people trying to get to country A or B. There's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of friction. This idea that when you're born, it's you and the planet, that you have a right to see the planet, to go around the planet. That's not really what the nation state system's set up to do. It's going to have you get born into a sort of a fenced in sort of cattle ranch. You're kind of born on the range, but in a fenced in area, and good luck if you want to get out of there. There's paperwork you might be able to get done and jobs that you might be able to obtain that will let you cross those fences, right? And as an American of privileged background at the time, I did get to do that. I got to leave North America, the lower 48, the United States, which includes Alaska and Hawaii at this point. I got to see the world. Not all of it, but enough to, consider myself fairly worldly and so forth. But that's not the experience of just anyone born on planet Earth. The nation state system has a lot to do with keeping you in place, and we can see that with the Gaza situation. It's considered a privilege too much to ask to get out. Voluntary departure, which is not the same as forced displacement. I would like to leave, and you're saying I have no right to leave? That in itself shows in what way the Palestinians are discriminated against as not being citizens of the nation state system. The United Nations is very cruel to people who have no state. This is my view. So in new circuit designs for Motherboard Earth way back in 95, let me just end by spelling out that there's an overall sort of philosophy here that we are like a computer on this planet, and that the planet itself is a motherboard, not necessarily created by humans. Humans are part of it. Certainly humans contribute with their cities and all this that they do. It's changed the planet totally. Totally agree. Anthropocene or Anthropocene, is it? The age of humans? Seems to be we're in the age of humans. Now, is that a good thing for the planet? And for humans, can humans sustain their operation here? And Bucky Fuller, was always pointing out that we've kind of programmed ourselves with some ideologies that now work against us. There's Malthusianism. There's a lot of superstitions about money and how come we have to have so little of it, and what about paying it back with interest and all this kind of stuff. And in general systems theory, which competes with sort of everyday economics, we look at the sun as the source of our income. Pretty much. It's incoming energy and it's coming in free. It's grant income. It's not loan income. We don't have to pay it back. In the short run, meaning within millions or billions of years, it's just energy that comes to us. And you've got to remember that context if you're going to understand quote unquote economics, general systems in general. This bad thermodynamics out there where they'll tell you Earth is a closed system. It's anything but, right? It's not a closed system. And that's why we can keep creating more wealth for ourselves, even with this many people. We can ephemeralize, we can redo our curriculum over and over as we evolve, and keep reprogramming ourselves and not getting stuck. But I'd say right now, we have gotten stuck. Let's go to this diagram again as I wind up. So there's new circuit designs for motherboard Earth. Was a mid-1990s kind of manifesto where I'm saying, we do have this open system situation with the sun where the Earth is not fated by science. There's nothing in the science that we know that's saying we're doomed, in the short term at least. Now the sun's going to blow up or something like that and stuff. I'm not saying that Earth is here forever, but this idea that the walls are closing in and we might off ourselves as a species or set ourselves way back through atomic warfare or something, that's not because it's against the backdrop of, well, it was all going to hell anyway, we might as well go out with a bang or something. It's not that we had insufficient resources to keep going in a positive and fun way. We chose, because of our ideologies, our idiot ideologies, to prematurely abort and do stupid stuff, right? And that's possible. It's possible in the near future here to do a lot of stupid stuff. And I just want to make sure I have laid down some record of the fact that not everybody was on the same page with that. I was never on board with economics as currently taught. And as you know, I've got a strange take on the math that we teach, that it needs to be aided and abetted with some newer material that I discuss in this chapter. It's kind of the golden age of me living in Washington when I could write about GST and send it around and get readings about GST through the paper. It's like a small town, right? It's whatever I'm interested in, I would start communicating about that, and then sooner or later, I would get more topical articles and papers and stuff. I liked that. In Oregon, it's not quite as well organized. So Synergetics on the web, or maybe it's just Portland. Synergetics on the web. We have a teacher strike starting, by the way. I told you that, right? So this is an opportunity. Hey, math teachers, tune in my channel for a bit and maybe watch this one video, the Synergetics slideshow at grunch.net/synergetics, and get a sense of the alternative namespace. I'm tempted to call it the alt-left, since we already have this idea of an alt-right. And even though my voluntary departure from Gaza thing is considered far right in its conception, I don't think of it that way. I think of it as human beings have the right to travel the planet, and all this bureaucracy to keep you stay where you are when you're born and just be that forever. Now you're a citizen of this country and you can't ever get out, probably, unless it's exceptional circumstances. That's got to go. It's too crowded a planet to be that in 4C. And does that mean I believe in open borders? Well, look at the borders. They've never really been all closed or anything. It's like, do I believe in rain? Do I believe in wind? Do I believe in geography? I mean, the borders are open to some extent more than they're closed at the moment. That's just how it is. And if you're saying you want to build fences between all countries that are like barbed wire, razor wire, you want to stretch thousands and thousands of miles of that stuff around all borders of all countries, ideally, like that would be your utopia. Just be aware we've never tried that before. And the US has been growing very quickly. And once you're to the point where you really mean it, that you're going to close that whole migration corridor for everybody, all kinds of humans who don't necessarily even care about nations. You're going to close that off. Now you're going to build that wall. That's a new thing. It's not like you're enforcing a status quo. I mean, look at the Louisiana Purchase, right? To me, that has a lot in common with whatever the Balfour Declaration, whatever it was, that created a way for a diaspora nation, people of the Jewish faith, to congregate in the Palestine area. That was because of some sense that, well, we own this, so we can give it to whoever we want. And that's kind of like, oh, now we own Louisiana. The people who bought it from Napoleon, right? Louisiana Purchase, so now it's ours, this kind of thing. It's like these transactions that go on in the imperial headquarters behind the scenes, where the quote-unquote great powers drank their own Kool-Aid, and they believe it's theirs to sell. Like Napoleon thought that all of Louisiana on up, the whole big chunk of the U.S., Napoleon thought that was his to sell somehow. The French thought they owned that, and they thought they could sell it. And this is the thing, Imperial Europe was like, believed the planet did belong to them, and they were like buying and selling it to each other. And that reality doesn't always catch up with the locals right away. They don't realize what history is being made behind their backs, you could say, right? So we have to start over in a lot of ways, right? I would go back and start with Napoleon and teach a lot more about his invasion of the Russian territories and so on. Like, let's roll forward from Napoleon, but let's talk with maybe a little less taking it for granted that the nation states are going to always be here. They're going to be here, but maybe more like postal zip codes, and maybe more like a lot of nations are not going to be large contiguous land masses like the size even of Colorado. We could have a state that's just a lot of dots, but it has campuses, it has universities, it has hospitals, and let's do this with Tibet. It already is a diaspora nation, right? There's not a place on the globe right now that we color in and say there's Tibet, and yet effectively it doesn't have the status of nation either in the United Nations. But think of companies, big ones like, IBM, and they're global. They have an insignia, they have logos and stuff. So I would say we're really used to the idea of ethnicities that are global, and maybe just have a smattering of assets around the world, but aren't like religions are like this, right? The Catholics have the Vatican, but that's the exception more than the rule as far as religions having a contiguous landmass, especially representation in the UN and so on. I mean, that was all an attempt to get things to work, but I'm saying it hasn't really worked that well, right? Refugees fall through the cracks. people without a state, they don't get treated very well. It's like, stay where you are so we can bomb you to oblivion, and you have no right to leave. It's like, wow, that's immature. I'm glad I don't think that way. All right. Talk to you soon. Have a good one.